only wanted to hold you.
Hello, this is Haberman bringing you yet another game you've probably never played, and probably shouldn't if you know what's good for you. Today I bring you, and let's see if I'm getting this right, / NPPD RUSH / the milk of Ultraviolet. Ooh, so as you can tell, this is an indie game, because no major publisher would ever let a title like that come to pass. No, this game was published by Kiss Ltd, who claimed to be the ultimate independent digital games label, and developed by one Railslave Games, who you, of course, already know for such hits as Selfie and Fractured Chakra. I'd probably be remiss not to mention the fact that Railslave Games is a one-man development team. I mention that because I've seen people try to criticize this game before, or criticize other games made by one-man development teams, and for some reason people seem to think that that makes them impervious to criticism. I don't buy that argument, because I bought this game. It costs money. Specifically, it cost me $1. It's usually $4 on Steam, but was 75% off for a time. The point I'm trying to make here is that this game costs money, and that the point of reviews and videos like this is to let people know whether or not a game is worth that money, and so that's what I intend to do here. But before we take a look at the gameplay, we have to take a brief look at our options menu, which itself is very brief, which, as some of you may already know, causes me some grief. There's no excuses for lack of options in modern games. So here's all the options in the game. You do get the scanlines option, which doesn't really seem to help much because there's still scanlines even when I turn it off. I hate scanlines in games. I hate fake scanlines. I think they look atrocious. But I guess the developer thought it was more important to have an option for that than it was to include any video resolution options. Nice priorities there, buddy. Speaking of other pointless options, here's chip fat. I don't know why you'd want to play like this. It looks bad. But you can turn it on if you want. As for myself, I'm going to turn off scanlines as well as chip fat. And I guess I'll do a random paint job, since it is an option and there's not much else to do on this screen after all. And I'll also show this volume display here. And this demonstrates, in case you haven't noticed already, the curvature of the screen, the fake forced arcade CRT sort of curvature warping of the screen, which another thing I fucking hate. Unfortunately, unlike the scan lines and the chip fat, whatever the fuck that is, there's no way to toggle that on and off, so you're just forced to deal with it. And it brings up a problem with the game, which is that it's going for this, hey, remember when games used to look like this sort of look? And the problem is that no, I don't remember that. I was alive for the time. I remember when games used to have to deal with these scan lines and the monitors would be warped, but it was never this bad. It wasn't layered on, and so this just looks fake, it looks disingenuous, and it just gets in the way. And when you get into the actual gameplay here, you'll find that having these added distractions just makes the game virtually unplayable. And so it's frustrating to look at, like, the focus, the attention on this shit, and the stubborn refusal to include resolution options or any other real options here. And it just doesn't jive. If you're going to go out of your way to include these unnecessary filter options, at least include necessary shit like resolution options. Oh, but enough about that. Let's get into the actual game, why don't we? Let's log in. Isn't that cute? Right. Our objective, should we choose to accept it, is to rescue 30 junkies by using WASD and the mouse. That's the second time they've mentioned that. They already went out of their way to mention it in the intro. But just in case you still think they're joking about it, let it be known there is no controller support for this game, no gamepad support. So really, it is just mouse and keyboard, no other option. Personally, I always prefer mouse and keyboard, but I imagine that's a bummer for a lot of people. And here's the game. Can you tell what's going on? Because I sure as hell can't. But I'll try my best to explain what's going on. That's a junkie there, we just rescued them by walking into him, we get a small bit of HP for it. Here are enemies. Every time you shoot them, you get these obnoxious splatter effects on your screen. There's also this other crosshair that isn't ours, which I think shoots you just to make the game more frustrating every once in a while. If you're still having a hard time telling what's going on, That's probably because the graphics here are crazy busy. Every sprite, every texture has too much shit going on. Add to that the flashing backgrounds and the fact that everything looks super blocky, and at some point it makes it hard to see enemy projectiles, which in a top-down shooter gets to be kind of a shitty thing to have to deal with. Like, I understand top-down shooters have a sort of reputation, if not an expectation, to be challenging, to be hard, but this is the wrong way to go about doing that, man. I mean, the classics of the genre weren't just hard because they were hard to distinguish the foreground from the background in, they were hard because you had a lot of shit to contend with. You had a lot of bullets and a lot of enemies to deal with. There's not so much of that going on here, it's more just a matter of the background being a fucking migraine-inducing mess. And I get the feeling it's a deliberate design choice. I mean, it would have to be with how busy the background is. Oh, I see what that red crosshair does now, by the way. It creates that trailing flame enemy who just gets in the way of me trying to collect these coins and seems to sap a lot of our health. Health is a very precious commodity in this game. This game would be impossible if you died in one hit, given how hard it is to actually see bullets. Speaking of hard, I'm actually about to run out of time, and as far as I know, there's no way to increase the amount of time you have via pickups, so unless something pops up in the next few seconds. There's also not any health power-ups or like weapon power-ups that you find on the ground. All you find are these, hostages or the junkies or whatever. And they give you like plus 10 HP, but that's not nearly enough. And I think I'm about to run out of time, if not run out of health first. And yeah, we ran out of time. Game over. And right back to the start screen, right back to the menu. Well, I didn't play that nearly long enough. We gotta pad this out a bit longer. Let's put a few more attempts in, why don't we? Pop in another quarter. And we start from the same spot. I was mentioned that we can't find those power-ups in the game world. We actually collect these coins and there's a shop we can go to, which I'll collect a bit more, then I'll go visit it. Rescue a few more of the junkies. Thing to know is that these levels are statically designed, there's no randomization element, which, you know, I was sort of expecting it in a way. I mean, I guess I was expecting too much. I guess that was really my fault for walking with this higher expectation, but it felt like with the way they incorporate the RPG elements, that this would have been like sort of like a roguelike. It sort of has that vibe to it. I mean, you only get the one life, progress doesn't carry over between playthroughs, there's no way to save the game, so it's got that going for it. But I also get that those aren't traits exclusive to roguelikes, so... Also, I think they started us with more time than we started off with the last round. We started off with like 200 seconds last time, we started off with 300 this time. Alright, so here's the shops. The clockmakers here. I do believe they extend our time. They give us 1 more minute of pain. All this cutesy dialogue, all these funny descriptions. I'm sorry, not funny. These are weird and dark. Man, can you believe how surreal and edgy this game is? Because I can, because it's obviously trying way too hard to be. And now here's one of the more interesting people we can talk to. We can willingly inflict a damage over time to ourselves to get some quick cash, which I imagine makes the game even more difficult than it already is, so it doesn't seem entirely useful. And I think this is actually how you... If you don't want to find all the junkies in the level, you can just straight up buy them. You can pay credits to. Just bring the count down a bit. And this is going to be our health boost. This is how we replenish health, but at the cost of time and cash. There's always trade-offs here. Everything comes with a trade-off, besides just the monetary exchange, which I can imagine that getting pretty frustrating. Also, I'm noticing, I think the scan lines are more pronounced this time, as if they reset themselves, as if the toggle turned itself back on, which, not digging it. Definitely makes everything that much darker, that much harder to make out. I doubt we'll finish this game in the sit-through, in this playthrough, but I do know a trick later that I'm going to show off. I'm going to demonstrate to you something I discovered on my own from fucking around with this. So I'm getting like a ZX Spectrum vibe from some of the things here, like these cars, like the single color cars, some of the single color objects here, the monochrome portraits for all the people, for all the shopkeepers. But then other parts of it are way too advanced for a ZX Spectrum kind of game. so I don't really know what it's going for there. It's some sort of hybrid meant to pander to the faux retro crowd because it's blocky and pixely. And you know, this game, a lot of comparisons get made to Hotline Miami with this game from the few people who have bothered to play this game. And yeah, you can definitely see that. But then again, Hotline Miami was copying so much shit, was inspired by so much shit, that it's kind of hard to say, make a direct comparison to that without having to mention like a dozen other games that it was just directly ripping off. And as long as I'm briefly on the subject of it, I didn't care for Hotline Miami either, especially its visual style with the pulsing and pounding pixels or whatever. Tried too hard, broke the rules of the faux retro aesthetic it was going for, and sort of clashed. Like, in my mind, in my opinion, if you're going to commit to the faux retro style, if you want to pander to the nostalgia, like, commit to it. Don't be like, well, what if a game for the SNES had, like, N64 style effects? Like, no, just, like, commit to one console generation, commit to one generation of hardware. That's me. I don't care for faux retro in any capacity. I don't care for it in any way, shape, form, hybrid or not. So I'm hardly the judge here. I'm trying to make my way back now to the start because I was running low on time, running even lower on health, but there's no map here I can bring up, so I'm sort of already lost. And there aren't really any landmarks to go by because everything is equally ugly and blocky. It all sort of just blends together at some point. And that was inevitable at some point or another. Right back to the menu. Which... let me just double check to make sure that we didn't reactivate that scan line somehow. It did! It totally fucking did! Every time you die, it just resets the rules for fucking scan lines, and I probably chip fat. I have to imagine that chip fat setting. Well, there's only one way to find out, and that's by turning the goddamn thing on, and ooh, I can tell this is gonna be especially brutal on the eyes. Oh, that's even worse. Dear God. Oh. I can already feel my retina starting to burn a bit. Let's go in here. Let's go up to this next floor. Let's see a new area, why don't we? Skip around a bit. Because like I said, I don't think we'll be finishing this in a single playthrough, so let's explore as much as we can. Even more flashing textures here. Nothing for me. Literally nothing for me. And I can't even imagine, like, the most ardent faux retro enthusiasts getting much out of this, because it's just so aggressively, like, in your face. Look at all this fucking art. Look at all these pixels. We're gonna flash them in your face as hard as we can. As violently and quickly. You know, I haven't mentioned the sound in the game yet. All the sound effects themselves are very shrill, piercing. The music, though, is actually pretty okay. I kind of dig it, to be honest. Some songs are better than others, of course, but they all have trouble with looping. None of them loop right. No, the sweet moment of silence right here. I do believe all the music in this game was composed by the sole developer of the game as well. And it did the shit with the fucking scan lines again. So let's turn that off. And let's not mess around with the chip fat again. Luckily that's not on by default. We'll try the... let's go for the third floor here. Which, again, looks very similar to that first and second floor. I mean, more or less it uses most of the same assets. This flashing shit, these boxes here are taken directly from that second level. Who knows, maybe they're deeper in the first level, we just didn't find them yet. Man, it's just... assault. I use the word assault, I use the word piercing. These are not the adjectives you want to describe your game. Well, maybe assault is like a game mode, but I'm getting off topic here. Because everything about this game is designed, I think, to like antagonize the player. And that didn't last very long at all that time. I think it was the same enemies. We're dealing with the same enemies here. I guess they maybe just scaled up the damage a bit. Or maybe I was just playing worse and not realizing it. I'll turn off the scan lines again. I'm thinking it might be time to do a bit of messing around. But first I need a bit of cash to mess around with the shopkeepers. So let's grab a bit of that, rescue some of these junkies, these poor junkies. The story in this game is I mean, it's told through those introduction screens, it's told through the intro cutscene and that one wall of dialogue. And there's a bit later on that we'll see, but this whole screen was blue there for a second. Like, I couldn't even see because of the splatter effects. Like, that's just in your face. That's just rubbing it in. Like, I don't feel like this game is particularly... If you didn't have all these obnoxious effects, the game would not be as hard as it is. I should also mention, I don't know if I mentioned earlier, this game is version 2.0. This is actually a massive overhaul of the game. I should have mentioned this earlier. Because, you know, you move decently fast in this game, but apparently there was a point in time where you did not move nearly as fast, where you moved probably half the speed. And people complained about that, and that got changed, so I wonder what else we could complain about and find changed in the future revision. There's things you can't fix about this game. There are fundamental problems with this. There's another game of this developer's, Fractured Chakra, I believe, which I looked at the devlog for on his YouTube channel, on the developer's YouTube channel, and that game has gone through like 5 completely different iterations. I'll admit, I was sort of mildly intrigued by this guy and his games. Not in the sense that I actually like anything he's made, but just more interested in his process. Which, apparently part of his process is starting development on his games from scratch over and over again. Looks like we're starting our playthrough here from scratch over and over every time we die. I think it might be close to time to start messing with the game, to start breaking the damn thing. But first, turn off the scan lines again, because I refuse to play with them on. And oh no! I went through that dialogue screen too quickly, and now we have 2 songs playing at once! It's a fucking cacophony! Oh no. This is even more unbearable than before. Okay, so the trick here I discovered, if you can hear me over these 2 songs playing at once, is you do the organ traffic, you get the 10,000 in cash. You can actually do it multiple times, and it makes the damage to you go even quicker. Then you can just buy all the upgrades. You can buy all the junkies you need to rescue. Of course, you gotta keep going back to get that quick cash, which of course makes your death even quicker, which means you gotta heal, get a bunch of health going. And I accidentally bought too much health and I ran out of time because health costs time. But I'll get this. I know I can get this to work. First, turn the scan lines off. And there, I gave it a bit more time so we didn't have multiple songs playing at once that time. Right. So I'm going to buy a bunch of... Well, I'm not even buying, I'm selling my organs. I'm going to sell a bunch of them as quickly as possible. Give us a bunch of cash, and you can see our health draining pretty quickly. Get enough health that we don't run out of time. Buy a bunch of time, so we have more time to do other shit. In fact, let's spend all of our cash just to put a bunch of time on the clock, because time only costs cash, which is convenient. And now we're free to fuck with the economy some more. And now we can just buy the rest of the junkies until we run out of cash, in which case... So, with this, we can pretty much bypass all the gameplay. We can bypass actually having to play any of the levels. Which, seems like a bit of an oversight. Seems like something may have been missed out on here. Because, yeah, this is so cheap that we can just get a pool of health. It's all the money left over. And buying all the junkies, or rescuing all the junkies, gets rid of that time limit. So now we can focus entirely on just buffing our health. And, you know what? A bit more for the road, because you can see how quickly it's draining now. We are living on borrowed time. But, remember, our mission is to get to the 5th floor to meet with that buddy from before, who I don't think we actually find here. So, I guess he's missing in action. probably just gave up on these graphics and left. That's what I wanted to do. Alright, let's spend the rest of our money on health. And I think that should be enough to make it to the end of the stage, which, thank God, this stage is straightforward. And the music is just completely unfitting. It's the least aggressive track in the game, and they save it for the final level. Oh, I'm sorry, this is actually the final level, which is a proper top-down shooter. With some more dialogue here, none of which makes any sense. I hope you've been following the story at home. Just kidding, this game doesn't have a story. You can't manually advance any of this dialogue, by the way, it's just stuck on a timer. So that means a speed reader like me gets pretty bored pretty quickly, staring at this. And I believe this is the girl who was peddling us that health earlier. So there's your plot twist, I guess. Sorry to spoil it. And you can just tell this is going to be a proper top-down shooter boss battle right from the get-go. Yeah, so this is, the movement on our character is suddenly a lot slower, which is definitely frustrating. I think this is actually the speed that the game originally played at, before the whole overhaul thing. I've seen videos of the pre-this version gameplay, and god, does it look awful! It looks real slow. And not to mention the fact that it has some features that I think are missing from this, including like a really bad first-person shooter kind of minigame segment. I don't even know. It's real rough around the edges, and this is rougher still, I'd argue. Oh, and we died, which means we gotta sit through all this again. Oh, kill me now. You know what, as long as we're waiting here, I'm gonna go ahead and read you something way more interesting. The game's Steam description. Experience the speedrun Glitchpunk Micro Epic. Just let that sink in for a second. That is the worst sentence I've read in my entire life. That is just buzzwords. That doesn't mean anything. That doesn't mean anything. You know what word I haven't used to describe this game yet? Pretentious. And I should have, because it's a perfect word for this game. It encapsulates the whole thing. It's a game for no one, except the developer himself. Like so many indie games I've played are, except at least half of those have the common courtesy to not have a price tag attached to them to be like free Flash games or whatever. But no, this is a retail product on Steam. A publisher said, yep, let's put this on digital distribution. And oh no, I died. And oh no, I pressed the escape key, which exits you out of the game completely with one keystroke. I guess we won't be seeing the ending after all. What a shame. Well, that was NPPD RUSH, etc., etc. Don't buy this. Not for $4, not for $1. Don't even play it for free. It's really bad. Part of me honestly believes that this game was made specifically to antagonize and spite anyone dumb enough to buy it. Which includes me, so I guess fuck me, then joke's on me. Or you know what, maybe this game was submitted to the publishers as a joke. Maybe it was supposed to be a fuck you to them. You know, the indie developer saying fuck you to the publishers. And somehow, by pure accident, this game got approved, and now here it is on Steam. Don't play this game.